Hi guys, I know that I haven't taken to YouTube for a long time, but I really thought that it was appropriate to talk about the latest move by President Rodrigo Roa Duterte to deal with the China question or China problem, in that China for a very long time now, long before the time of President Duterte, had laid claim to the Spratly Islands in the South China Sea that has now been called the West Philippine Sea, so by the Philippines themselves. The situation is that there are many other nations, including the Philippines, who have had disputes over territory from China, in particular the Spratly Islands. But regarding China, as everybody knows, for a long time now, they've been building installations there. There have been Chinese vessels around that territory, and they've been laying claim to that particular area. Now, so many people in the past, maybe the wokes, maybe the people who don't appreciate President Duterte and his leadership, have been calling the Philippines somehow the province of China, or have been making horrible remarks about President Duterte, saying that he has somehow been involved in China. Now, the reality is the situation regarding the Spratly Islands has been going on for a very long time now, long before the time of President Duterte. In fact, if you watch YouTube, you will see that there was a confrontation with Senator Enrile and Antonio Trillanes, then senator, regarding the negotiations with China, or the so-called backdoor negotiations. Now, the fact is that there has been some kind of, clearly, there has been some kind of talks or negotiations or backdoor negotiations with China long before the time of President Duterte. And in fact, President Duterte had inherited that problem. In the election campaign, or the election preamble, President Duterte himself said he would ride a jet ski to the Spratly Islands and would lay the Philippine flag. Now, that was like a joke, like a rhetoric. You know, President Duterte, that's the way that he speaks. Nobody should really have believed, or nobody would have really believed that President Duterte would really jump on a jet ski and ride to that particular area. But the fact is, President Duterte was even then doing some kind of diplomacy, if you like, or some kind of on-the-hop diplomacy to be able to say to China that those islands are in fact Philippine property. In fact, they're only 100 kilometers away from the Philippines. So in fact, they are rightly the area of the Philippines and not of China. But of course, China's been doing some kind of oil exploration. Now, I don't really know the history, but I understand there was some stage in the past where it was even negotiated that China would somehow be on those islands to basically do some kind of oil exploration or some kind of joint partnership. Now, this all happened a long time before President Duterte took office. So for a long time now, President Duterte has received a barrage of criticism from wokes, from yellows, from the Dilawan, saying that somehow President Duterte is somehow in cahoots with China. So President Duterte has today, or recently, come up with a really brilliant move, a really astute move, in that he has invited Senator JPE, Senator Enrile. He has invited Juan Ponce Enrile to the palace to discuss the issues surrounding the West Philippine Sea, or the Spratly Islands. And what I find most distasteful is the wokes who have been very critical of JPE, saying that he's somehow senile, or he's very old and he's a fossil, and all these other insults. But the fact is, having watched Senator JPE in conversations, along with the situation that Franco Mabanto was involved with that as well, I can say safely and wholeheartedly that JPE is as sharp as a knife. You know, he really understands the issues. He understands the history of the Philippines. For goodness sake, he's been around for 100 years, so he fully understands the history. He fully understands the issues. Now President Duterte has called on him to go to the palace to explain the issues, to explain the situation, and to set the record straight. As I said, President Duterte inherited a problem from previous administrations, and rather than not doing anything about it, President Duterte has asked for an explanation as to the history of exactly what's happened. You know, President Duterte is a president who means business. He will do whatever he can to put the situation right. But rather than listening to hearsay from the wokes or hearsay from the Dilawan, President Duterte has invited the then Senator JPE to fully understand, to fully appreciate all of the issues. And of course, by negotiation, by understanding all of the issues, I'm sure he can now go back to China to see whether he can resolve them. Of course, he can't resolve all the issues because he only has a year left in office. But I'm very sure that President Duterte wants to hear it from the horse's mouth. He wants to hear it from a very noble senator who has been around for absolutely decades and understands the history of the Philippines. So to all of these disrespectful people who call Senator JPE senile or having dementia or all these other things, that's absolute nonsense. He is very, very sharp. He fully understands the issues of the Philippines. He fully understands the history of the Philippines. And I have no doubt he will be able to shed light onto exactly what led to this, exactly why China have laid claim to the Spratly Islands and what's happened in previous administrations. When did this all start? Were there any negotiations? Perhaps he might be able to reveal more information about what he might know about the negotiations of Trillanes, because it seems to be that Senator JPE understands what's really happening, understands what Trillanes was trying to do, and understands what happened during that time or during the time of the negotiations with China. So this will be a very interesting meeting. The fact is, it's not for President Duterte to lay blame or to point fingers or anything like that. And I'm sure that's not what the president wants to do. What he wants to do is understand the issues and maybe even understand if maybe somebody in a previous administration has signed any kind of documents or made any kind of agreements with China that maybe the president doesn't know about. Maybe he wasn't given that information. Maybe there is some kind of negotiation with China from previous administrations that President Duterte has inherited. So how can he be blamed about a situation that he didn't even start in the first place? So let's wait for the result of these talks and let's just see what will really happen over the China question. But I think this is a very interesting development and I'm really, really pleased to see this happening. Thank you.